All right, welcome to our Halloween special. And we have, on previous episodes of this thing, we have spent a lot of time doing introductions and stuff that we are not going to do this time. We're going to just jump right in. And we're going to talk about the supernatural and the spooky in Shakespeare, starting with Macbeth and starting with the witches. And we're gonna go through. We'll see how many plays we get to, but what I would like to start with is Macbeth, and I would like to start with productions that I've directed. So we're going to get through a bunch of that stuff, and then I'll throw it open to ask some questions about productions I know y'all have been in that I haven't directed. But starting with Greg and P. Midge, who were Weird Sisters in 2011. That was mind-blowing when I looked at the year thinking how long ago that was. It feels like it was yesterday, and it feels like it was forever ago. So my first question to you two is that name, Weird Sisters. How much do you remember us talking about it back then?
Are you sure about that date? I think it's 2014.
I'm with James on that. I'm fairly certain it's 2014.
Hang on a sec.
I think you're thinking of the Holtzman Macbeth.
Yeah.
I think you are right. And I think that that was 2010, 2014.
I
you
just
are
looked
correct.
at the poster that's in my foyer, 2014.
What's in my head is the Tempest that was 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that correction.
Macbeth 14 is my Wi-Fi password.
Wow. Wow. Very nice. So do you remember us talking about the name that we used in our production? You guys don't say it, so you might not have been a part of that.
I do recall a few things. Sorry, P-Midge, I'm just going to jump in real quick. Just the fact that they're never called witches in the text, and that pronunciation where a lot of people say weird, it comes from a lot of different origins, but it sounds a lot like wayward. It sounds a lot like the outsiders. It sounds like the outcasts, and that's more of, I think, what we were focusing on. Curious how many spelling variations there are as well. Yeah, Tom brings up a good comment there. Yeah, I wonder how many variations there are from 400 years ago to today. But I do remember discussing it, like what makes, especially for the three of us, it was me, P. Midge, and Holtzman, half naked playing these Weird Sisters in those dresses, and we're like, what makes them strange outcasts? Is it just the fact that they are like tough to nail down, put in a box? Are they weird, like they've got beards but they are kind of female-ish? They've got this like weird like gender fluidity to them. I don't know that we used that term in 2014, but it was definitely discussed. I remember like what sets them apart, what makes them what they are, not only individually but as a cohesive unit, as a trio.
Yeah, and I also remember one particular conversation we had, Jim, where we were working on the relationship between the three of them, and we were working on the power dynamic that exists between the three of them. We were kind of establishing a hierarchy that existed between them, and we talked about their relationship as sisters also, that there's a sibling, that they're siblings, and that's significant in some way. But that was the first thing that popped in my head.
Before I throw it to James to talk about the scene where he meets you three, talk a little bit about what we explored with movement, because we were in that situation where we were fortunate enough to be doing this show for the Blackfriars Playhouse, and that place has a trap door in a way that we think perhaps Shakespeare's Blackfriars might have had a trap door. So do you remember those first rehearsals where we started talking about movement and how we ended up where we did.
Yes, definitely. So I do remember, you know, we were almost immediately choreographing a lot of different scenes, but everything that we did, right? Like the choreography, the physical vocabulary, the Laban effort actions that we applied, like everything, all the physical work that we did, it all originated in the language and in the rhythm of the language and the paraphrase of the witch's language that we had to do, which was the most challenging paraphrase I've ever had to do in all my time at the Blackfriars. There's almost no way to paraphrase the witch's language perfectly. It's a huge challenge. We talked about the rhythm. We scanned the verse and the trochaic tetrameter that the witches, or trochaic tetrameter that the witches speak in. So everything started from that rhythm, and we found a lot of aggression. We found like a primal drum-like, you know, rhythm to the witch's language that we were then able to apply. And then, you know, Steph Holiday Earl worked with us on the choreography for the three of us. But, you know, we have our own movement vocabulary. We have our own things that we were able to do and that we struggled with and that we wanted to bring to the role. But all of that kind of movement vocabulary originated in a language. And then Steph was really helpful in sort of bringing that femininity, the elongated kind of movement that we were able to find. And then we were also able to find, I think, based in the language, a lot of aggression, a lot of violence, a lot of muscularity in the role that I think was unique to this production and that I was really happy that we found.
Your thoughts, Greg?
Completely agree. And I remember, admittedly, I don't think maybe it was a secret, not really liking the dresses at first. They were floor length. It was kind of, I guess, technically a dress. It was more of a skirt with like a tank top with our chests exposed. And they were stretchy. And it meant that if you stepped on it accidentally, it was tough to get out of that tangle. And I'm pretty sure at least once or twice throughout that entire run, all three of us had tripped or slipped on it in some way.
Oh yeah.
But toward probably about the middle of the run, I realized that if I could just get it out of my way, and then I just used that as part of my witch's, my weird sister's physicality. So sometimes I would use it like you were talking about, Midge, like in those movements that were more fluid or more feminine or more elongated. You know, it was good to use it as like a flowing piece of fabric. But in those muscular moments, I found that if I could just like roll them up on the side and I would fling them over both of my shoulders, then I would have a more muscular approach to it and a more like agile movement style. So to be able to switch back and forth between those two, depending on whatever the language dictated and whatever the scene dictated, ended up being one of my favorite parts about playing that role.
Let me ask a quick question before I get to Tom's question. I know that we worked on movement before we got those costumes.
Mm-hmm.
What I don't remember is how late we got those costumes and whether or not that was, I know that I went through different phases with different costumers inside the Blackfriars of trying to work really hard to get either the real thing or some facsimile of the real thing early on. And I don't remember if 2014 was late enough. I left in 2017. So it had to have been after I had started pushing for, we got to have stuff earlier, that it wasn't because of this show that made me say, oh, well, we got to have it earlier. But do you recall getting rehearsal stuff or anything like that?
I know we had shoes. I think we had some sort of I think we worked with skirts of some kind, but once we had those costumes, there were a lot of breakthroughs that just started rolling through. Like the costume, I think mine, I don't remember Phelps's or Holtzman's, but I know mine was asymmetrical. Like one half was exposed, the other half was covered, which helped with the sort of androgynous feel of the character. And yeah, I remember vividly like Phelps describing like yanking up the spare fabric in a really disturbing and intimidating way. And there were so many things that you were able to do with those costumes. They did also make the quick changes like incredibly challenging, especially the sister to bloody captain back to sister, like Blackfriars magic change we built in. And they were tough. It was an obstacle that also helped you find a lot of exciting moments and a lot of exciting like poses and stances that you wouldn't normally get. Because I mean, naturally, when we were rehearsing, we were so grounded and so focused on the lower half. And then when we got when at least when I got the like asymmetrical upper half, that really helped with a lot of different poses and stage pictures that we created with the witches that I thought was really, really cool.
One of the images that's stuck in my head from the earliest rehearsals of exploring movement was how y'all came out of that trap. Do you remember? Can you describe for other folks what that was like?
Yeah, it was awesome. First, like my favorite, some of my favorite memories in that were like the moment right before the show started where we were crouched very tightly underneath the trapdoor. And it was the three of us, like, I mean, on top of each other. And there would always just be one or two moments where we would kind of like chuckle to ourselves, like, this is pretty strange. But it was like that initial burst of energy that the show started with, like a very jarring sort of entrance where we just immediately kind of exploded out of the bowels of the earth and erupted onto the stage. Was definitely one of my favorite opening moments of any of the Blackfriars shows. And we would always get a very visceral reaction, especially from the gallants on stage. Like, it was shocking, it was upsetting, it threw you off your rhythm completely, and it just started this locomotive that is the play, and a relentless pace. So it was really a sprint start. And I thought that was really, really exciting and fun to do. And it was also difficult. We had to very carefully choreograph it so that we could be safe and like throw those trapdoors really, really hard and get that huge land, and time it perfectly. Because if the first moment of the show is like ka-thunk, ka-thunk, the doors don't open perfectly, it's not the same effect as this sudden eruption and explosion out from underneath. So we had to choreograph that incredibly carefully. And I'm trying to think, Phelps, do you remember the cue to like throw the trap doors? I'm trying to remember. It was something very specific, but it's escaping me right now.
Yeah, I know. I can't remember if like we were given a go from someplace external, or we just like heard the doors close after the pre-show and we gave it like a 5 or something like that, and we were just like, okay, here we go.
I do remember. Yeah, we had a countdown together.
Yeah,
and it was based off. Yeah, I think the pre-show, the closing of those doors, and then we do a countdown and throw them. Yeah, it was really fun.
Like give it that extra beat so that it wasn't like in the rhythm of the pre-show speech.
Yeah,
so that you knew like something's like just past that point where consciously you're like, well, okay, I guess I can check out a little bit, and then to your point, it wasn't just the visual, it was the aural cue, the sound of those super heavy trap doors slamming against the stage, and to get that timing right was very, very important. We also had those two like fire trigger things, those handheld, like just a quick burst of flame, and that's it, just a flash. But that all together, like the throwing open, flash, slam, and then 3 people coming out all at the same time.
Who was in the middle?
I think that was
Belts. Yeah, I think it was you. As I remember, Holtzman and I threw it.
You two were throwing open the doors. I had the flame things, and I'd set them down and just like crawl out as close to.
Remember, it's the crawl thing that I wanted to describe. That because you're coming out of that thing and you're having to use your upper body to get up, it was the crawl using your arms and dragging the rest of your body, kind of like a mermaid, that was part of that remarkable visual opening. Chris, for it, and then Tom.
Slithered out.
Patrick, you mentioned that when we threw the doors open, it would scare the bejesus out of the gallants, right? Is my memory right? And this was the first show where we had changed the traps, so the audience didn't know that they were going to open that way. And so,
Yeah.
for any audience who'd
I
been there
think
before,
so.
everybody was collectively just amazed by what had transpired before them. Like the theater was different, and it was magic that was causing it.
For those here and that are watching this later, describe how the trap was, and before it was doors that these guys are talking about flowing open. What was the trap thing like?
Well, before, like the trap, that was the trap that Fallon would jump into as Dido, Queen of Carthage. It would open down into the earth. There was levers that you would hold with some counterweights, and you would pull out the stops, the staves, or whatever. You'd pull those out, and then nobody would step on the trap because you might fall through, and then you would pull the lever and they would fall in. This new trap didn't require all of that work. You know, usually the old trap required about 2 to 3 people to make it to pull it off. This, just whoever was down there could throw it open, or whoever was above could open it with a ring attached to it on the stage.
We designed that original thing with the counterweights, with the research that had been done to create the trap at the recreated Globe in London. There's a lot of research done about how they might have done it. And so we did a smaller version because our trap was smaller than the big ass one in London. And after years of doing that, it was a safety hazard. It was too hard. It required too many people. Can we just do this?
Too many people in a very tight space too, because it's tiny down there, right? So if you've got people to operate it, usually like it's the people, before we changed it, it was the people who were going to come out. And then there's others that are available to help to move the lever, to do all of that. So it sometimes was 5 people down in that tiny space. And there was always the, because this was also before we had anybody on any mic sets or anything, you know, any ASM. So you're listening for your cue of, oh, we've got to be clear. Everybody's got to hear downstairs, upstairs. So yeah, I think the change was welcome. It was very useful.
And it was one of those things where the change was still a non-mechanized thing, and there was nothing in the research that said it could not have been done that way. And I remember the timing of, well, we're going to be doing this play, and we've got these characters. Let's get it done so we can do it for this play. Tom, what was your question?
You guys have sort of already hinted in on the answer, but I was going to ask the group, you know, how do you create, and Patrick and Greg, you both hop me in on this, disquiet or eeriness in a shared light environment, right? It's very challenging to make things spooky at 2 o'clock in the afternoon with the sun shining down on you. So, Jim, I'm curious. I mean, obviously, you found a method to throw the audience off their beat between the rhythm of the language and the explosion of the beginning of the play. You know, I've done Macbeth, I've played Hamlet's father, and in both cases, I had the luxury of lighting. So I'm just curious, you know, how you guys bring that sense. I mean, obviously, you're very present in it, but what are some of the other ways, Jim, that you've directed these moments to create that eeriness in broad daylight?
Well, these guys were describing a bunch of it from not only that oral thing, but the visual of what they looked like in those costumes.
Right.
And you know, knowing that Shakespeare wrote the play for men to be playing these roles, and we think probably men rather than boys because of Macbeth's line about the beards.
Right.
And so we had, I think of those 3 actors, one of them had an actual beard and 2 of them had things that were part of a head thing. And so some of the disquiet was, how creepy can we make these costumes?
Cool.
And then what we also talked about with the movement, how do we make non-human movement? what else comes to y'all's head about how we tried to create the creep? Yes, Christopher.
I think we have to give a lot of credit to the language of this play. Like the second that the play starts, the language is so different than the rest of the plays, and it's scary. It's uncomfortable. It puts people it puts people on edge. You read the double toil and trouble with a classroom, and everybody starts falling into that meter, and the room just gets spooky. It doesn't matter if you have lighting. It doesn't matter if you have costumes. If you start chanting that text and hitting the syllables, it gets spooky.
Yeah. And then you've got, I was going to say the exact same thing, Chris. Like that's where it starts. And like, then you spend that time that we did working on the language to paraphrase and drill down into exactly what was being said and to like, excavate it and find another way of trying to express what's being said so that you uncover what's actually there for you. Like there's such iconic lines. We keep saying double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. It's kind of sing-songy, it's kind of chanty, but you try and paraphrase that. And I was just thinking about it before we jumped on the call, what we had. And it was like, you try and keep the alliteration, the rhyme scheme, and then the synonym, and you get like twice, work and worry, flames blaze and kettle hurry. And immediately it's like this, it's ambiguous, it's stressful, it's like you said, it's this disturbing, poetic, primal type of feel, and that's the origin for all of it. And then the rhythm sort of takes us over and we start to build off of each other, and then you have just an insane level of commitment. And that's what we had between the four of us in all those scenes, would be this like incredible focus, incredible commitment. And the lights, actually, I think keeping the lights on, I think brought the audience into that much more and let them see the little subtle moments between us, the knowing glances we could share, the messages we could send each other, and the way that we could include the audience in our conspiracy. It only heightened that sense of eeriness, even though the lights were on. I think it just forces you can't rely on the movement, you can't rely on the costumes. All those things are helping, but understanding the language first, and then knowing that the 3 or 4 of you in that scene are completely committed to this otherworldliness was what made it really special.
Patrick and Greg, would you also agree or argue that a lot of it is about maybe not playing the spooky, like, oh, I'm scary, I'm a witch, hey, but rather committing to the action that is within the language and committing to that to a point that it allows it to be creepy without pretending to be creepy?
Yeah, when you have great actors, you can just be, right, and let the reactions of your teammates sort of inform the audience of how frightening you are and how disturbing you are. Like, we can't pull off everything that Shakespeare wrote perfectly. We can't totally capture exactly whatever image he had in his mind, but the reactions of our teammates could, and the way that it's just like playing a king, like, the old trope, like, how do you play a king? You don't. The people around you give you that power. In the same way, that was true for our team. They gave us as much power as they could, and then we tried to honor that by being totally committed and locked in with each other. But yes, I agree that, like, if there's anyone on the team who flinches or who looks for an easy laugh or doesn't quite commit to that world, then that illusion starts to fade away, and there's no place to hide. The lights are on. Everyone has to be equally committed and imaginative about how terrifying you are, and then you can just be, and they give you more power, and the audience is right there with you.
Before we bring Hecate into the equation, James, what's your memory of coming onto the scene with Banquo and viewing these 3 creatures, in terms of what was creepy for you, what was spooky, what was your Macbeth thoughts as you were witnessing coming upon these 3?
Well, I have strong memories of being so excited to have these 3 guys playing the witches in those androgynous kind of costumes, and I remember those things snagging on the trap and stuff as they came up, and they were so patient as they were working through it, you know. And it was, but I remember, you know, because I'm a sizable human, and Renee Thornton Jr. is an even more sizable human, and you know, you come out there. We had these,
and he was your Banquo.
yeah. And we had these awesome costumes with these broadswords and battle gear and stuff, you know, and I remember being really just pleased with the idea that it was easy as Macbeth to be terrified by these three. Like, you know, if it's three, you know, kind of bent over crone women, you're like, yeah, they're a little scary. You know, I have a sword though, but these guys looked martial. You know what I mean? They had this kind of masculine, threatening energy, and that cadence that they had. You know, it was a drum, Macbeth doth come. You know, it was like, I really remember sort of contacting that and thinking, and it was also kind of, you know, I mean, one of them would come back as Macduff, another would come back as the bloody captain. You know, that whole martial world was sort of built into their frames. So they partook of this kind of really threatening spookiness, the spookiness that could kill you. You know what I mean? Like how scary the battlefield is. You know, the bloody captain's terrifying. He's, you know, he's covered in blood, and he's giving this report and all that description of what, you know, from the nave to the chops, you know, all that stuff that Duncan says about what Macbeth and Banquo have been doing, hacking through these people. I really felt like it was it was a very different set of witches, and I remember feeling like under attack a little bit. You know, it's like these guys could attack you. I mean, these weird sisters, whatever they were, you know. Did you guys? I was wondering, you know, as you guys were talking, Greg and Patrick, and I know you want to move on to other things, Jim, so I don't want to extend it too long. So feel free to cut this off, but do you guys remember having a conversation like with Holtz, with John Holtzman, about what actually you were? Do you know what I mean? Like, because it's like, we're the Weird Sisters, we're guyish in dresses, and we're you know, the spells, the incantatory nature of it. I mean, you know, the whole poem is a kind of, I mean, the whole play is a poem, and it's a kind of a spell in that respect. But do you guys remember like feeling any need to try to define what you were, or were you content?
Let me tee them up a little bit, because what I remember talking to y'all about up front was what, as a director, I wanted us not to do. That I wanted us, you know, that there have been so many different iterations of these creatures in the centuries in theater since it was written, that we were not going to be three characters in cheerleader outfits or nun outfits. And I think I went through the list of all of the different things that the Police, the band The Police, had their background singers dressed as during the Synchronicity tour in the 80s, that they had these three things come out in these different ways. And I'm like, well, that's from a Macbeth. That's from a Macbeth. That you were not going to see Weird Sisters in scenes that Shakespeare didn't write them in. You know, so I know that before we started talking about what you were, I tried to lay some groundwork about where I didn't want to go. So what do y'all remember about I think that I did not define that, to answer James' questions from the director's point of view. But I don't know how much, I don't remember how much we talked about you guys defining it.
I remember that conversation, because wasn't Stewart doing it at Dunbar Warehouse, and they had those three like nurses.
Yes, nurses.
And I remember talking about that, you know.
I wanted nothing that could be defined that easily.
Yeah, I remember that. We talked about the nurses a lot, and that was an awesome production. I love that one too. But I remember it was like one of those great Jim Warren moments where you're like super excited to kick off this rehearsal process. And all I knew was, we had done Othello recently, so Iago was in my mind, like, I am not what I am, and like undoing things, chaos. There's something eternal about them. There's something timeless. And then we get to the first line, when shall we three meet again? And Jim's just like, stop. Like, so tell me everything. Like, so if they're meeting again, when did they meet last? There's this like joy at their reunion at the beginning of the play that, so we had all that notion of like the chaos, the undoing, the evil, the primal nature of it, but we also found between us, at least I experienced this from my perspective, that there was this mischievousness and joy that was kind of at the central of their sibling relationship. Like they were excited to be reunited, and they found there were joyful moments that they had in undoing the world. But yeah, I remember like specifically, we didn't feel a real strong need to like get into the nitty gritty of exactly what they were. They just were what they were. and that was where we started. And we didn't spend too much time delving into the exact nature of their supernatural characteristics.
Patrick, you just used a really unique phrase, and I want to press you on it a little bit. Undoing the world. Do they undo the world, or does Macbeth's translation of what they say undoes the world?
Great question. I can't answer that.
Well, I much like
Yes.
Caliban and a few
Yes.
like
The
there's
answer is to your multiple choice question, Tom, is yes.
Yes, and just because I do wonder, is there a naturalness to them? Is there an of the earth concept to them at all? That, I mean, yes, to Jason said it. Yes, and right, all the above.
Part of what we talked about in the what they're not is, let's try to find from the text, what power do they have, what power do they not have, and how do we represent that in a way so that we are not letting our production pendulum swing into giving them more power than Shakespeare did or giving them less power than Shakespeare did. What is power of persuasion versus whammy power of magic?
Yeah.
And Shakespeare really keeps it gray. There's a lot of gray area there. But that brings us to trying to get Hecate into the mix of this. So, Chris, how much do you remember being a part of the conversations with the three versus being separate, because Hecate is separate?
I remember being pretty separate from the witches. I think I would have liked to have been in on the rehearsals, but there was a lot to do. So
that was the combo. It was you needed to be doing other things, and there was a part of me that wanted us to work on you independent of them on some level.
Yeah. So but like sitting in on work throughs or whatnot and trying to watch to see what happens, but also realizing that Hecate is other than the three witches. I mean, we even signify that with costuming, right? Like Hecate has all of their clothes on. But Hecate also did have the tendrils that came down. I definitely remember stepping on those sometimes and going, so I feel your pain there, Greg Phelps. But yeah, it's interesting, like this power of persuasion that you're talking about, right? As we go into Hecate, I mean, even Hecate has trouble trying to maintain some sort of order over the witches. When Hecate shows up and it calls the witches saucy and overbold for what their interactions with Macbeth, it's like even this character, who is a goddess, is struggling to try to maintain some sort of order within this orderless world, this yes and, as Jason said, kind of world. It's like there's no right answer, and even the person who should have the control is struggling to rein it in. So yeah, I found it was kind of nice to come in as an outsider, to feel like, wait a minute, this is, how do I find my way into this world of movement that I'm supposed to have perhaps defined years ago, but it has evolved beyond me. I've still got the fire cannons that Greg has, which is quite exciting. That was always fun. But yeah, by not being in those rooms, that gave me a chance to be other, which was really nice.
I should probably say this for folks that did not see that production and are wondering what the heck do they mean about fire cannons. By the time we got to 2014, I was really interested in trying to explore the kinds of spectacle the Jacobean theater had, because we hadn't done much of that at the ASC. And we did a lot of talking about how people went to hear a play rather than see a play, which is true and not true. I think that they had their own flavor of spectacle, and some of that included fire effects that they could do with gunpowder. And what modern things do we have that are not battery powered or not, you know, you got to plug it into the wall socket? How might we start toying with that? And so y'all were doing things that was, you know, first for Blackfriar stuff at that time, to try to get into the spirit of what the Jacobean folks had by the time Shakespeare wrote this play. Did anybody ever get hurt with one of those? Get singed or burned or anything like that?
No, I'm glad it wasn't like real gunpowder or anything like that. That would have been unfortunate. No, I never did.
Yeah, I think that their safety probably back then was not as good as ours. I hope ours was better. Do you, before I ask Macbeth, Greg and Patrick, do you remember how you folded Hecate into your world of you three?
I mean, it was kind of a lot like what Midge was saying earlier about, you know, kings. You don't play a king. Hecate came in and instantly had the most status. There was deference. There was pain. I remember that Hecate inflicted on us. Hecate had power over us. We might have been a little chaotic. We might have been a little like rambunctious and doing things on our own, but ultimately, whatever the supernatural hierarchy was, I think Johnston kind of hit on it pretty succinctly. It was somebody from the outside coming in, going like, "What have you been doing since I've been gone?" You know, and us being like, "Oops, sorry." But I think just defining that status relationship was, I think, the most important thing. That and lifting Johnston up in the air.
I was about to say the lift. Yeah, the lift like really characterized it for me, like getting her up and supporting her and having her like also being afraid of her. She would punish us. She would hurt us. She could harm us. But we would also, there was also a joyful reunion in it as well, even though we were frightened of her. And there was like a power boost that we got from her at that point in the play as well. But the lift was really what characterized it the most for me, like, and that amazing image of getting her all the way, I don't know, like probably her feet were probably 5 feet in the air. So she probably stood, you know, however tall Chris is, like 6 feet tall, you know, 11 feet in the air or whatever. It was an amazing image that we were able to create with her. But yeah, there was joy and there was fear, all the stuff that the witches had. It was just even more heightened when she was there.
I'm also, Chris is terrified of heights, and I have come to find that so is Hecate.
all of what, even though we had different kinds of audiences come to see us in the Blackfriars, it was still the controlled environment of that theater. Jason, you're playing Macbeth right now on tour. And going to the hills and hollers of Appalachia. I'm interested in. Whoa, you went away. You're back. You went away. You went back. I'm interested in the way that the creepy in that production translates into different spaces on the road, and how West Virginia audiences, from kids to adults, are responding to the kind of creepy stuff that we're exploring here for Supernatural Halloween and what Macbeth does in throughout the whole play.
Well, some of the thoughts that have been running through my mind as y'all have been discussing this production that you were a part of is the way that Jim has translated some of those tricks from the confines of the Blackfriars into something that we can accomplish anywhere from being in a large high school auditorium to like a conference room at a college, to, all that. So for example, we don't have a trap door that we can throw open and get that thud, but we've got this big piece of metal thunder sheet. And so as we kind of lull them in with the conclusion of the pre-show, and then it hits, it's inevitable that everybody on the sides, and usually most of the people in the front, are like, there's this like jolt. And then I think from that moment, somebody made a comment about like it was just relentless energy, and that is the way our production feels as well. And it starts, we don't have a trap door, but we have these three tiny, like, think of a bar stool, but like squished. We have these three bar stools, and we went to a fabric store and bought, like, I think, Jim, I don't know if this has been a while ago now, but I think we bought like literally every piece of fur that they had at this fabric store. And then we sewed it together into this, like, it just looks like a pelt of a bunch of different animals. And the witches are under it at the beginning. So it's over these stools and they're under it. And so it's that same like big oral boom. And then here they come flying out from under this carpet, literally into people's faces. And I think that just sets it off from the beginning, and they're pulling blood out of the cauldron and making beards on themselves with the blood. But also a very important element in our piece to create the creepy is the soundscape that we created. Like there's 9 actors in the production, 3 witches on stage, and 6 actors doing sound effects in the back. So that almost everything the witches do is underscored with thunder sheets and sound tubes, and we play a very, very out of tune violin under the witches, and I think that done well, like with crescendos and decrescendos and tight cutoffs and all that, I think that is really, really, really important to helping the creepy live as we have to adapt to all these different spaces on the road.
In 2014, did we have that water phone yet?
Yes,
did we get it for that? Was that the first thing that we did with it?
It might have been the first time we used the water phone.
Or was it the Holtzman tour where he?
Oh, maybe it was that. I think you're right. I think they had it on tour first. I was jealous. I was like, they get to take that on tour? We don't even get one.
Yeah, did we steal it? It's our turn now. It's our turn for the water phone now.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't. Those things were expensive as all get out, and I don't know that we ever had 2, one for the road and one for at home. Maybe we did
around like 2016 or some 17.
Maybe we did.
Like yeah,
it's too good not to use. Let's talk Banquo, Bloody Banquo, and Banquet, and the creepiness from that. Again, in that production, and in any production that I've been involved in of the full play of Macbeth, there is going to be a person that comes out to be the ghost of Banquo. It says enter ghost of Banquo. So we're going to have that rather than it just being a figment of Macbeth's imagination that nobody in the audience can see. So I'm interested in you first, James, talking about the image of seeing the ghost of your dead friend and how we accomplished it in that production to create creepy for you, to create ghost, the kind of powerful effect that motivates Macbeth's language about how freaked out he is.
Yeah, I've played both roles on that same stage, and it was really interesting to sort of watch it in the lead role, to watch Renee as Banquo, and to go through the rehearsals where we developed that, because you have the banquet table, it's pretty crowded on stage. You've got Macbeth already running on the ambition line pretty hard and being egged on by the missus, and she's there of course as well, and she's a powerful presence. I think of it as sort of I got the feeling, I remember getting the feeling in the rehearsals of this sort of triangle of tension, that it was when I remember us trying to get him onto the stage surreptitiously enough so that it was apparitional, and that it was a matter of how he entered relative to the table and where everybody was sitting, and then that suddenly the seats are taken, and then suddenly that bloody head is there, and then I remember it just feeling the tension of Lady M's management, and this hallucination, this guilty hallucination that he's having. I mean, it seems, it's like the ghost in the closet scene in Hamlet. It's like, Gertrude doesn't see it, but Hamlet sees it, and other people have seen it at the beginning of the play. So you're like, is this a ghost? Is this a hallucination? And the answer, like sort of Jason said earlier, is yes. It's we're haunted by things, and I think I'm with you. I think it's important that the audience sees that thing, and that it has a certain, the way the witches do, a certain miraculous kind of apparitional feel to it. And then it's a matter of, it's funny because it's like even in that scene too, it's like the battle hags as I thought of them, in the Weird Sisters that we had. He's this adversary, who's accusing me, and he's powerful and scary. Even in life he was powerful and scary, and now he's dead and coming at me. So I don't know if I'm answering your question well, Jim. I feel like I'm not. But
was I smart enough to get him up on that table? Did he walk on the table?
Yeah, I mean, he was. It's funny because I'm trying to suss it out, because I know what I did as Banquo, and
right.
It's sort of, they're crossing in my brain. But I'm
pretty sure I saw a photo recently of him being up on the
sure
table.
That he got up on the table. I don't
Didn't
know.
he crawl on it? He crawled across it.
He
I don't know. He stood all the way up.
Yeah,
I think he stepped up on it and then crawled toward you.
Yeah, crawled toward me, and they're all like, oblivious, and just, it was a little, like The Ring kind of a thing, like crawling out of the banquet table at me. But yeah, I mean, I remember Renee being just wonderful and focused and terrifying in that role. And I mean, you're managing a lot, as far as navigating the stage goes, and you're ready to face the Hurkin tiger, but you don't want to face this thing, so it's
Sarah, what's your memory of how hard it was or easy to manipulate the body of your Macbeth the way you need to talk to him and yell at him for screwing up your party and not clock the large bloody person?
Right. I mean, anyone who doesn't know Renee Thornton Jr., he's 6'5", and so I mean that's first and foremost, right? Don't look at the 6'5" ghost that you can't see, right? So that's important. And then I think the fun thing about doing that scene, though, was managing that tension that James was feeling was very palpable to me as wife, but I don't know exactly what's going on, and we're trying to host trying to host something here, right? And she is desperately trying to keep it together and keep everything normal and nothing to see here, and having to do that believably and try and keep everything on track was a really fun line to try and navigate there, and trying to keep him on point, but failing to a certain extent, because he's really gone off, and he's not really in her control and hooks in the way that he once was at this point.
We're gonna lose Greg here in a couple of minutes,
Yes.
so I wanna do some jumping around. But before I do that, Greg, I know you both played Macbeth in Chris, you played it at the Blackfriars, and Greg, you played him in San Diego.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about your Banquos and in that. Did you have a body? Was there a bloody guy?
Oh yeah. One of my favorite moments from that production was it was like a 7-person Mac. Benjamin Kearns directed it. Dennis Henry was in it. And one of the actor that played Banquo was also one of the Weird Sisters and was also Lady Macduff. He was awesome. I don't know where he is today, but Adam, if you're hearing this, you were awesome at that. But one of my favorite moments during the banquet scene, where I'm trying to convince, like Fallon was saying, the very frustrated and distraught Lady M of what's going on. The actor would actually pour a bunch of the fake blood into his mouth, and in a really specific moment, just mouth the word "why" at me. And this actor just happened to have a really big, wide mouth, so it would just be like, "Why?" and blood all over the place, and it was really cool. But he was definitely there at the banquet.
Yeah,
What was your banquet?
I also had the actor was there at the banquet as well. For me, it's just such an awesome scene, and and Lady Macbeth deserves the award in that scene, because she has to, as Sarah say, shepherd and manage the table and manage the emotions of her husband, and at the same time manage the emotions of the guests and not spoil this giant assassination that's happened. And at the same time, it's so funny. I think that scene is hilarious. It's spooky and it's ridiculous, the things that Macbeth continues to see and that people hear, and the excuses that Fallon comes up with, and then we try to get back on with it. I'm sorry, Fallon, that Lady Macbeth comes up with, but and then we try to get back on with it, and the dead body's like, "Oh, I'm not done. I got a good response that time." It's hilarious.
Well, those great lines of, "It used to be you could kill a guy and he'd stay dead, and now
the time,
it's not happening anymore."
Exactly right.
We're gonna let you go, Greg. Thank you so much.
Later, man. Great to see you.
Great seeing all of you too. Thanks for letting me talk a bit. I'll see you later.
So he was talking about a 7-person Macbeth. Jason, you and Sarah have a 2-person Macbeth that we call the MACBETHs. That is one of our AGC shows, that one of the 2 shows that we've created. So in a 2-person show that is focusing on Mr. and Mrs. and doing all of those scenes, when we come to the banquet, there ain't no more actors to play anybody else. So it's the first time I've directed that scene to not have somebody there as the bloody dude. So you are simultaneously in a production where he's there, and then you're in a 2-person show where he's not there. What is the creep factor like in the difference between those 2 versions?
I think the creep. Sarah and I were talking about this a little bit last night, because the interesting thing about us doing the 2-person Macbeth and the full cast, quote unquote, Macbeth, is that when we don't have a ghost, I am in Lady Macbeth's shoes, because I am reacting to something that the actor can't see. Never mind, it's too confusing to get there, but it switches it for us. I think the creep factor is
but
greater.
you don't have to pretend to not see that bloody person.
Right. But she has to pretend to not see the thing that's not there, though. But I think the creep factor is greater because you can see him. I like it better that he's there. I think that the way we have it staged with him getting seated in some of the one of the moments of large mirth that that we kind of distract him getting seated, and then the way that the blood is on his head and his face, and the way that the sound effects bring him to his feet, and he stands and turns, and you can hear the audience going, to seeing this. I think that is a greater creep factor. I think when we don't have the guy and we're doing the 2-person version, I think it takes, unless they know the play really well, I think it takes the audience a minute, because I yell and they're like, what the hell are you yelling? And then it takes them a little bit of a minute to figure out what's going on there. Whereas it's more instantaneous with the person. I also think that the way I play the scene without him is heavily influenced by the fact that I have another version with him. So in my brain, my Banquo from the full cast is standing there when I'm doing it without him there. And even the movements, and it's all there for me. I think it'd be weird. It would be the floating dagger again. If I'd never had a Banquo, I'd have to create that whole situation.
That's the reason there needs to be a body there. Shakespeare could have written it like the dagger, and he doesn't. Sarah, from your point of view, how much different is it for you between those two things? Is it pretty much the same?
Yeah, it actually is very, very similar, because just like Lady Sarah was saying, because 2 Sarahs, 2 Lady Macbeths, I kind of love that. You're so busy, or at least I'm so busy trying to play hostess and keep him in line, that even when there is a Banquo on stage, I'm so distracted by other things that I don't even really notice that there is an actual body there most of the time. So the interaction with the audience and in the full cast production of the other actors on the stage and Macbeth, it's the same for me on each one. So it's kind of weird that it kind of works out the same both ways.
Yeah, but it also makes sense because he's not there for you in either one of them.
James, I'm interested to hear how physically close your Banquo got to you. Because we had a moment, we had a moment in rehearsal where Jim does this thing where he tells my Banquo to do things and doesn't tell me that. and so at one point I was like, "You're touching me. You have to."
That's called a Jim Warren.
Wow.
But
yeah, what
he whispers in one actor's ear, and then you wait to see what happens.
Yeah, I think it is pretty awesome. He's not here. He's not here for me. He's here, but I still think that proximity is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is pretty. It's also really interesting, I think, to get him close to Lady M, who can't see him. And it's like with Gertrude in the ghost in the closet scene. It's always interesting to watch Gertrude look through the ghost that's right in front of her. And I think it takes such discipline from an actor to manage that and to convey that. So I think the job of Mac in that scene is much easier in a lot of ways than Lady M's job in that scene. As people said, she's navigating so many things, and then having to control somebody who's losing it.
This might sound like an odd question, but before we leave this play, because I've got a Mr. and Mrs. from 2 different productions, I'm interested, is there anything else that went on or is going on in your brains in the relationship between the 2 that is affected by the supernatural elements of the play? Is there anything creepy, supernatural that we haven't talked about that involves the 2 of you that you think is worth mentioning?
I think it's interesting that she believes the sisters.
The report.
The report of the sisters, specifically probably inspired in a big way because of the instantaneous cawdor, which is also one of my breakdance moves, the instantaneous cawdor. I think it's interesting that she believes that, but she calls bullshit on the air-drawn dagger and the ghost. I just think I find that interesting, because when he says, "Look, there is this thing," she's like, "This is the air-drawn dagger. What's wrong with you? You're back to this crap again." So I always find that interesting that she goes halfway, but not all the way into the supernatural with me.
I know what I would say if I were lady, but I'll let ladies talk about that.
I also think, I don't know, for me, it was like the witches became the other woman in a way. You know what I mean? He goes away from the marriage. He goes out to the supernatural. He wants the answers there. It's a terrifying scene with the Parade of Kings. It's terrifying. It was terrifying in our production. I was sort of pasted to the floor by what was happening, you know, and I remember, you know, I think of, canst thou not minister to a mind diseased? You know, it's like the madness in the play and the psychological element, it lays just right along that supernatural. So it's like, you know, after a while, I'm like, I don't, you know, I don't have to wrestle too much with supernatural. It's like this mind is diseased with ambition, and it's taken the least little suggestion to go off the rails. And this marriage, which apparently at one point was close, disintegrates. And, you know, and that was the thing that Sarah and I talked about a lot, and I know we talked with Jim about, and how much I really cared about the marriage in that play, and what happens to it, how it gets shattered, and you know, and it's because there's two really ambitious people who are frightened in different ways, you know, and can't deal with their fright. Really, you can't move toward each other to deal with it ultimately.
And I think beyond the supernatural, there's also this sense of almost modern psychological thriller in a lot of it. I mean, with the murders that you have and the way they're portrayed, the suicides that you have, and then even the beheading, you know, it all kind of just stacks, and it feels like a modern horror psychological thriller combined. You know, you get the ghostly elements, but you also get the human tortured elements. That's a great point, James, that you just brought up.
Thanks.
Fun stuff.
I think it's important to note that the first time that we meet Lady M, though, too, that she's calling on spirits. So, you know, I mean, that's we've seen the Weird Sisters at that point, but then the first time that we meet this woman who, throughout the rest of the play, we're going to have a relationship with her husband, with the otherworldly, but she's calling on spirits the very first time that we meet her. So it's not something that is out of the realm of what's believable for her. You know, when Macbeth tells her that this is the prophecy, these are the things that I've heard. Why does she pick and choose, Jason? Well, what's useful for what they want? I mean, what helps forward her desires for the two of them, and what's not useful for the way that Macbeth, for the road that Macbeth has headed down. In my opinion, that's, I mean, at a basic level.
Well, and you've got the added thing of they prophesied Cawdor and it happened. So that's tangible proof.
Yes,
they're right about that. So let's make them right about King.
Let's go whole hog.
I think
Behold, here's the king in my home.
one of the terrifying things that I didn't anticipate when playing this role was the lack of sleep. It's like, because at the end of that banquet scene, when it's all done, it's the last moment that has the couple together. And Macbeth is just like, we are tired. I'm going to go solve this so that we can finally sleep. And they don't sleep. And that's a terrifying prospect to think about, especially when you think how many balls he continues to juggle in the air, both of them trying to just keep this little white lie from devouring them. I find lack of sleep is a terrifying thing to encounter. A heat oppressed brain, right?
Okay, here's the question that I'm betting nobody has asked you, Christopher Johnston, in your entire life.
Wow, can't wait to hear this one.
And if I'm wrong, please tell me somebody beat you to it, Warren.
Okay, here we go.
Grease your boxers, Chris.
I'm already married. Okay, no way.
To one, right? To
Yeah,
one.
well, yeah, right.
Okay, well, fine. Any similarities between Hecate and Ariel?
Oh, I see what we're doing here. Transition. I love it. That's a great question. You're right. Nobody has ever asked me that. You're absolutely right.
Please tell your wife that I did, okay? That I got there first.
I will tell
Thank
her.
you.
That's right. If you like, then you should ask the question about Hecate. I don't know. Okay, all right. No, I don't think there's much of a similarity. I think they're entirely different beings. You have goddess energy versus spirit of the air, wisp energy.
I feel like Hecate also has so much more agency than Ariel, right? Because I mean, Ariel is under Prospero's, control to a certain to a certain extent. So Hecate, even though Hecate has that just small bit in Macbeth, the agency and the power that Hecate has is enormous.
Yeah, and I think whereas Hecate gets the witches to do their bidding for the most part, and so a lot of the magic that Hecate does will come from chanting. It will come from, when Davenant adds black spirits in 1642 or whenever that was. Like that's where we get weird magic powers for Hecate beyond what Shakespeare wrote. I think the music powers for Ariel, the magical powers from Ariel are much more visible for the audience. I mean, we don't get to see Ariel do the shipwreck, but we do see Ariel put people down. We see Ariel wake people up. We see Ariel lead people in. So that magic is a little more less verse based and a little more visual spectacle.
Tom, what's your question?
This is a question for you, Jim. I'm curious. Can we speak a little bit to James's proclivity towards this type of work and why the magic in the Jacobean stuff is a little bit darker and scarier? I mean, is there any lean into who his primary patron was at the time that made him write into this?
Well, we certainly think that Shakespeare was completely kissing James' ass to write Macbeth that has, the dude at the end who's king is a relative,
Right.
that the line of succession goes down to James. And we know that James wrote a book about witchcraft. So, there's a lot of speculation about, and the play Wittenberg explores that in really incredible ways, that some of it's historically based and some of it is imagination. But I think that the combination of James being the patron, so let's kiss his ass, what might he like, that also goes along with how live theater was morphing. It wasn't just Shakespeare, it was other playwrights too that were writing darker things. The indoor playhouses were getting more popular, even though they were, really expensive. More people were showing up at the Blackfriars and the other indoor places, so you could do more tricks, more special effects, and so you see the plays of the whole period getting darker and exploring supernatural and witchcraft and incest. Boy, incest was a big thing for the Jacobeans. There are a lot of plays. But somebody could look back on our era and say the same thing about some of our movies and TV shows as well. So yeah, I mean, I think there's some of that. Am I getting to the answer?
You said Wittenberg. Did you mean equivocation?
I did mean equivocation. Thank you. That's exactly right. Wittenberg is about Hamlet and Dr. Faustus, not about Macbeth, and equivocation is about the making of Macbeth. So Chris, you directed yourself as Ariel, and you were in the production when James played Prospero and Patrick played Ferdinand. Who were you in that version?
I was Stefano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the number, I mean, it was maybe 4 or 5 years between those two productions. And Greg played Ariel in that earlier one. Were there things that you wanted to do as Ariel that were similar or different than that earlier production you were in, or did that just not even enter your brain? You were in this moment. Renee Thornton Jr. played your Prospero. Was there any thought of stealing or staying away from?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those actors who tries to avoid watching any films of the project I'm going to work on. I just refuse to. It's why I haven't seen most Shakespeare movies, because I'm like, I might do it someday. I don't want to know. But when you do,
I like the voice.
just because I like to, yeah, I don't know what the voice is either. Well, whatever. It's just because I like to encounter the text and let my imagination run free. That said, there are no original ideas whatsoever. And when you do a production where Greg Phelps is as an incredible Ariel as he was, it's really hard to not be influenced by that. So no matter what I did, I am positive that consciously and subconsciously, Greg was creeping into choices that I was making. But the way that I got into that role was, I was like, okay, well, I get to do this. There's no design team. I'm just going to look into what this is going to look like. And I found a picture of makeup of like a black eye of exploded paint. And it looked like somebody was just moving so fast that all of the bugs in all of the world hit their windshield and it was their eye. And I was like, well, that's, I think, about as fast as Ariel flies. So then I got obsessed with this idea of speed. And flight and joy of flight. So then we started putting feathers on, tattooing feathers on my body for every show. Thank you, Lauren Ballard, for doing that. And then I think where so Greg definitely influenced me, and I think where it changed was just that I had a different Prospero than Greg had with Renee, and so our relationship, me and Renee's, was paramount to the way that I was going to play that part. How Prospero treated Ariel and felt about Ariel was essential to my performance. So I think that's where most of that stuff came out.
Using that as a transition into James, when you played Prospero, talk about how you conceived Prospero's powers and that relationship that Chris was just talking about between his Ariel and his Prospero. Talk about the relationship between your Prospero and your Ariel.
Well, I mean, Greg was, he was really remarkable. He was a remarkable presence on stage, you know, because he was bare chested a lot, and he had this paint on his chest, and backstage we used to put on the breastplate, you know, for the change into the harpy, and the thing was so damn cold. Sitting backstage there, and we had to go right onto his bare chest. And I remember we tried to warm it up for him, you know, before putting it on him. But God bless him. I conceived of Prospero's sort of treatment of him as kind of an arrogantly benign father. Do you know what I mean? Like it felt like that's how he treated him. Like he wanted to be thought of as being a good dad, but he was, you know, he could be a real jerk too, you know, because he wanted his ego stroked. It felt like, you know, that he'd gotten sequestered. And for me, I guess as a recovering alcoholic, I just, you know, like Prospero felt so junkie-like to me. He felt like such an addict in the way that he treated his power, you know, and he had real severe ego problems, and that had sort of sequestered him where he was. And it's only when his daughter comes the magic, of growing up, and he realizes that he hasn't done right by her, and he has to sort of see to that. That was central for me. So I felt like, like Ariel felt sort of like a mistreated stepson to me in some ways, with Phelps there. The supernatural stuff, especially with the ye elves of hills, brooks, standing lakes, and groves, that whole speech that leads to I'll drown my book, that moment of release, it feels like, as you rehearse, I can bedim the new tide sun, call forth the mutinous winds entwixt the green sea and the azure vault set roaring war. It's so show-offy.
You got a lot of that still in you, dude.
I can do the whole damn thing. I can, I teach this stuff all the time, so I have to wow my students by just doing swaths of it while it's up on the screen. The thing about it is that, like, that speech just has that build to it, and you realize this is also empty. Like, all these things you can do, they sound awesome, but it's like, to me, the magic of that play, lies in the things that he can't control, in love and, and in forgiveness, the things that are human, and so the supernatural, like, my favorite moment with Ariel, though, was the kiss that we came to, that on the moment of, of acknowledging all that Ariel has done for him. It's the so, and I don't know if you remember that, but in rehearsal we came to so, and then I kissed him on the forehead on the third so. And I remember Phelps, I remember his face when I did it. He was just like, it was like this staggering, it was one of those moments you live for in rehearsal, where you offer something to an actor and they receive it in this awesome way, and then they give you back something larger, and that's how it felt in that moment. It felt like, okay, there's a good guy under there and he wants freedom for everybody, but it's really hard for him to get there. And it seems to me it's only through the agency of that daughter and her energy that comes about. And that was sort of central for me,
I want to get to some more stuff that is more Prospero-centric in a second. And before I go to Sarah Fallon's Prospero, let me go to you, Jason, and Sarah Young. In the, I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the fourth time I directed this play was in West Virginia recently with Jason and Sarah Young, and it's the first time that I cast a female actor to play Ariel. That Greg Phelps with the bare chest. I brought into each of the those first 3 productions, the idea that of Ariel not being a more, it's often played by a woman, and it's often played, like a ballet dancer. And I was going for something different with each of the different Ariels, but with the same kind of base of, you're a badass. You do so many badass things. How do we counter this perception that is out there that airy spirit is a female ballet dancer with something else? And so Sarah Young was the first time I cast a woman to play that character. But in vibing off of how Chris was talking about Ariel and the relationship with his Prospero, how James was talking about his, starting with you, Jason. Oh, you wanted to go. I saw that at the last second. What I meant to say was Sarah Young as Ariel.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I want to say this, though, just to brag on Sarah a little bit. Not only did she play Ariel, but she also played Caliban in one of the wildest doublings and most amazing doublings I've ever seen.
I had to rejigger the. I mean, there are scenes when they are both in it, and I don't think I ever had you talking to yourself, or that I shifted things to make that possible. If you thought that was the full Shakespeare script, then you thought that might be a legitimate double.
No.
There were a few instances of saying the last line of a scene, leaving, and then saying the first line of the next scene. That happened a couple times, but never.
Transition material, filler.
James said a lot of the stuff that I felt like it was. It's interesting because Sarah and I are playing Macbeth and Lady Macbeth right now. And I think that it was actually more emotionally taxing on me to play Prospero Ariel than it was what we're doing right now. I think that Prospero loves Ariel. He's just not good at it. He's not good at it. Like he just, for all of his personal faults and flaws, and I think there's the antisocialness and the need for control and the arrogance. I think James said arrogance. It comes out negatively at Ariel, and I find that relationship to be so deliciously complicated because I think there is love there. And I didn't get to kiss my Ariel. I tried to hug my Ariel, and my Ariel walked away from me. And that hurts as bad as the Queen My Lord is dead, just remembering it.
Sarah Young, what was in creating your Ariel and that relationship? Any similar things, different things from what other folks have talked about?
Yeah. So it was also the second time I had played Ariel. First time with Jim as the director, but second time. And the first time I played it, there was this fatherly daughter sort of, not just because I'm female, but that kind of parental relationship with the Prospero. But the second time I discovered more of Ariel's immortality and kind of otherworldliness above humans. And to pick off of what Chris was saying about just fun and loving the fun of flying, that loving the fun of existing in the moment and playing and doing all these things and enjoying the humans that are on my island, but not really having that love for them because they are just flickers in my lifetime. So the second time there's very much an enjoyment and not appreciation, but an enjoyment of what I got to do. But that's all it was for me.
One of the coolest things for y'all getting to play Ariel is the backstory that you get to tell of the shipwreck and the flame that you get to describe. We didn't see it, but you get to describe it, and it just sounds like so much fucking fun to scare the living shit out of the people who you scared the shit out of. And what a great treat Shakespeare gives you to get to have those lines.
What did you guys do? What did you guys do about the harpy? Because I think that kind of ties into our spooky supernatural. I feel like the harpy is so difficult to figure out, right? Especially when you're doing it the way that we do it, the Blackfriars, and in that style, like bare bones. I feel like it should be terrifying, and I think it should be magical, and it should be epic. And I think it's hard to pull that off sometimes effectively.
We definitely got, well, terrifying from a personal perspective. We definitely got epic. We have these two, man, if this is not like theater of the imagination to a T, we have these two really nice, like metal expandable ladders. Those like A-frames that go up, and we put them up, and then we put a painter's plank on it and strapped. But the painter's plank was hanging off the front of the ladders, if you can imagine that. So the ladder was like this, and the plank was out over the front. And so by the time the harpy gets up, she's 9-10 feet in the air and just kind of floating out there in the middle of it. And so it was super epic and terrifying for the husband of the harpy on the ground going, oh God, please don't fall over, please.
Yeah,
it's a long way down.
that sounds really cool.
And big wings and
nice.
Yeah.
the one with James as Prospero, we had a big metal breastplate on Greg Phelps with bat wings in the back, and I stole some of the wing type stuff for Sarah Young's harpy. But again, there needs to be wings of some sort because of the description inside the text. There is bird imagery going on, even with just the word harpy. Chris, how did you do yours?
I wanted to use the Blackfriars is cool because, you know, like you walk in and all of the eyes immediately go towards the Franz Skene. And so I wanted to use that is the most dominant point to where I was like, that's going to be the strongest point for this to happen. How do I get big? So I made this, again, it came from looking online, going through Pinterest boards, and I found this amazing mask that we built that had big gold horns, and the feathers of the eyes became huge and gold. And then what we did is we also made wings that came off of it. And as it happened, I came through the Discovery Space curtains and grabbed the bottoms of both curtain, and then I stood up. I had two actors as like sprites or to help, and we created a lift, kind of like what we did with Hecate, but not as tall because Ariel is also scared of heights. And
I'm sensing a through line.
Yeah, right. So basically I came up and grabbed, kind of like pulling the Discovery Space with me to make my wings bigger and then also take more space. And with my helmet and the wings, I became much larger of a person. And so I did that whole speech on the hips of two very kind actors. It was awesome. You know, once you get comfortable with balance in that situation, and then you can actually focus on the verse again, and it was a blast.
I want to get to Sarah Fallon's Prospero, but before we do that, Patrick Midgley as Ferdinand, that is led by Ariel's music. I'm interested in how you playing the mortal character interacting with this invisible person, the creature that is playing music. What went through your brain to help create that supernatural for you? The audience could see that there was a guy actor playing a guitar and singing, but Ferdinand couldn't see any of that stuff. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it's very similar to the conversation we were having earlier about, you know, Lady M and not being able to see the supernatural figure. And I think one of the first of all, like with both Phelps and Johnston's Ariels that I did get to work with, it was like, you know, you mentioned the music, and the music was the magic of both of those productions. I mean, it was so clear in my head when I heard the music that was essential to the success of the production. And both of the music in both of those was so different, but so beautiful. I think in that first scene in particular, with Miranda, we were really able to milk the comic element out of that. It's a very like timing based kind of slapstick scene that Johnston was able to really help me with, and let Ferdinand be the goofy, immature figure that he is at the beginning of the play. But that was a ton of fun to do, and it was really just rehearsing the timing to a T to make sure that we could get the comic timing out of that particular scene, so that you get
Midge, did when you played Ferdinand, did your director manage to get your shirt off of you?
Quite
oh my God, imagine that.
I was gonna say there's a running theme, you know, Chris Johnston, afraid of heights, as all his characters, Jim directing men with their shirts off. I mean,
Jim's afraid of shirts on guys.
Do y'all remember me talking about that and how purposeful I was with that?
Yes.
It was
sounds like a conversation I hope you've forgotten.
It was
you blocked that out.
That's right.
I might block that one out.
What male directors tend to do, and old white male directors maybe even more, is put female characters in skimpy outfits that show a lot of skin. And I was deliberately trying to say, if we can do guy beefcake, we should do that, so that we are not just being sexist one way, that we can be sexist the other way too.
Well,
No
I gotta tell you,
complaints.
it was a terrific idea, except for student matinees.
Yeah, that was
Because when we got to
They
that
were
woodman
hard.
scene and he's carrying wood with his shirt off, the noises that those high school girls made, I mean, it was just like the scene.
Supernatural.
The scene was 15 minutes longer. I know, because I was watching
pretty
it from
wild.
the front. I'm like, can we move on? Yes, he looks good. Can we please move on?
And the answer is
what-
no, not till the scene's
No,
over.
there's not a chance.
Yeah, we did not.
They actually nearly wept when he left the stage. They're calling him back.
It's a good memory.
Very good for the ego.
Sarah Fallon, what was your relationship as Prospero with your Ariel? And then I'm going to keep going with your Prospero to talk about a couple other things.
Yeah, so it definitely shared some things of what James was talking about. I think that there was definitely more love. There was love from my Prospero to my Ariel. Prospero needs Ariel for a lot of things, and when Ariel kind of steps up to backtalk, it does very much get treated like an unruly child, you know, and it is very much I own you, and the reminders of, remember how you were locked in that tree and I let you out, and it is about the power that he holds over this character. But there is a love there. There is a relationship, and very similarly to James, I felt very tender and very sad at the end of the play when that relationship goes away. And I also got spurned by my Ariel at the end. So it you know, that was a tough, it's tough, but I think it's a complicated relationship, but I think it's really important. And I think it's really important to highlight how it's different than the Caliban situation. And so I think for me as Prospero, obviously there was a lot more tenderness and a lot more camaraderie and love there between my Ariel than me and my Caliban.
But before I ask you and the other Prosperos about your magical abilities, Midge, you played Caliban when Johnston played Ariel, and Sarah Young, you played Caliban and Ariel at the same time. Did either of you think of Caliban as a supernatural character, or did that word come into play? Or, since this is our supernatural episode, a special holiday Halloween AGC, what was supernatural or not supernatural to you about your Calibans?
I'd be curious to hear what Sarah thinks, but what I found, one, there were some echoes to the witches in the movement patterns that I had as Caliban. There was a vocal affectation that I felt like I needed to try with Caliban that I didn't feel like I needed to try with the witches. But in terms of the supernatural side of Caliban, I just felt as though he was tremendously sensitive to that without necessarily being of it. He has the beautiful speech about the music he hears on the island and how moving he finds that and how mysterious and powerful he finds that. And so I found him very in touch with that side of things, very sensitive to those things without necessarily being supernatural. He was very much of the island, and seemed to be, I mean, again, it was like a thing with the Weird Sisters where we never quite pinned down what he was exactly. We didn't feel a need to get too into that, although there was an amphibious quality to him, like a water-like quality that he had. But he was in touch with it and sensitive to it and aware of it without necessarily completely understanding it or being part of it. It was an aspect of his life that he was aware of and in awe of, both fearfully and, magically. But he wasn't necessarily part of that world. he's not really, he's only of the island, and he doesn't fit into any of those particular societies that are at war or inhabiting his place.
That's a really tricky role to figure out how to costume and how to play, because the descriptions in the text are all over the place, and some of them are by drunk people. So you know, Sarah Young, your thoughts on Caliban and supernatural?
So we actually just sort of talked about this the other day. Caliban is like a squib in Harry Potter in my world, in my brain, born of magic, but not with magic. So very similar to what you were saying, Patrick, about connected to it, can feel it and sense it. And playing both, when he has that beautiful speech about hearing the island and feeling the island and experiencing the island, I also decided that Ariel was part of that. And so I kind of had this idea that maybe Ariel was the island and then Caliban was connected to it. And so very earthbound for Caliban, animalistic, not as civilized movement, jerkier, whereas Ariel was stronger and smoother, and so that's kind of, and more up. And so that's kind of where I found the differences in them.
Yeah,
I don't remember. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that unlocked a memory for me. That's a great insight. I'm trying to remember, Jim. I feel like there was a moment in that scene where it was Phelps who was Ariel in that production, and I'm trying to remember where we made eye contact during that speech, him and I, because we didn't normally, but there was a moment there where we sort of locked eyes, and it wasn't clear if we were. It's kind of interesting based on what we're talking about, like, you know, when you can view a supernatural character and when you can't, who sees who. But I felt like there were moments in Caliban's journey on stage, and we did this with the lights on, where Ariel and I would see each other. But it was like, from my side, it was like, I'm not quite sure if I'm really seeing you. I imagine that I am. I could sense something there. But on Ariel's perspective, he was seeing me fully and was, you know, had a relationship with me that was very meaningful. So that reminded me of that moment. I wish I could remember exactly where in the text it was, but yeah, it was a very powerful moment.
In my head, what we get from the description of Ariel appearing to the mariners and scaring them, I worked that into our Ariel appearing sometimes and disappearing. So that's part of what I think you're thinking about too. Sarah Young, I don't remember us at the time talking about squib. I think that's a great thing. But I do remember us working a moment in where Caliban tried to use magic and failed because he doesn't have it.
Yes, we did. I can feel it in my body, but I just can't get it to you. Yeah.
Sarah Fallon, as
Yes.
you approached Prospero's magic in that production and in your brain, how much power did your Prospero have that was supernatural?
Yeah, I mean, not.
And there's a difference between supernatural and magical. There's a
Right.
blur.
So not born of, again, like, but access to, because I mean, we also had a moment where my Caliban tried to come at me with some sort of trying to access magic that was an almost laugh in his face, sort of, you don't have the powers that I do. But Prospero's magic is learned and practiced, right? It's not otherworldly in that sense of like, I've had this my entire life. And it is, I think it's important to tie that. It is tied into the staff, into the book, and all of those things that he gives up at the end, and the importance of that, and how much power he feels because of those things that he has learned, because of those things that he has access to, that he ultimately it's not gotten him where he wants to be and gives up in the end. But it's always fun to try and figure out how do we how do we show the magic? How do we show the audience magic tricks, especially in the Blackfriars, right? Because it's just cool little things that you can do that show magic. And one of the things that I liked in 1-2 where Prospero says, go make thyself like a nymph of the sea. Here, take this shape, right? So it's like, well, I'm clearly giving something to Ariel. I'm saying, go be like this, and I'm giving something. But then have I had this thing on me for the whole 1-2? It's a long ass scene. And so just a little thing that I came up with for that moment is we had our ASM up in the heavens, up above. And while we don't bring anyone down from the heavens any longer, just the one time that we did that, just opened it a crack. And this sash that Ariel was going to throw on top of her costume, I would say, take this, snap, and then the ASM would drop that. And we had timed it several times in a sort of tech to try and get it to fall perfectly where I could just reach out and grab it. But because there's so much distance between the top there, and if you're not asking the audience to look up there, it really can look magical if it times out perfectly. So I tried to look for little things like that to highlight the magic that Prospero had access to. And I think you really only have to find a few of those to be effective. And as long as they're done really well, they can really sell what you're trying to sell. So that's I definitely think Prospero has access to magic, but needs Ariel for the bigger jobs, and is also busy.
Keegs, your sense of Prospero's power, playing off of what Ms. Fallon just said.
I guess I go back to my library was dukedom large enough, and the idea that it's a function of study, that what he is primarily and sees himself as is a kind of scientist and scholar and explorer of those things. And so he's contacted some kind of arcane knowledges. And I think of, it's like I taught Medea this semester, and the whole discussion of her witch-like qualities, and the fact that she's also a pharmacos. She knows potions, and she knows, like, she's a witch maybe, but in the Greek terminology, she's probably somebody who can manipulate herbs and things like that. So I always thought that Prospero was sort of more along those lines. That a lot of it came from arcane knowledge that he's putting to use. But he does say that he raises the dead, at one point. And so he clearly goes beyond the bounds of what is, what should be mortally capable, what a mortal should be capable of. And so I had to see it as crossing some boundary into some sort of supernatural knowledge. But that speech just, I always came back to it, and I'm like, it sounds so like impotent to me. I can bedim the noontide sun, I can do all these things, and I can make it. I mean, the most effective thing he does is makes the shipwreck, because that brings to him the people he wants vengeance on, and it brings to him the possibility of his daughter's future. So but even then, all he can do is kind of haul the two young people together. And if love's going to happen, it has to happen. He has no control over making anybody love anybody else. That's the real power. And then I think he comes to that idea that the real power that he has available to him is forgiveness, but first he wants to torture them, and I think that's the other place where some of that power is performative. Like the harpy, it's like, the crowd makes the king. The pain of the three men of sin makes the harpy too. As the harpy talks to them and controls their weapons and racks their bodies with pain, that's where some of the horror and magic of that scene is for me, and internally I connect that to, we know how to torment people. You don't need magic for that, but so it's definitely magic. And I remember like sussing that out. I'm like, well, from what he claims to do, he can either make a lot of people hallucinate, or he can actually do this thing. But I can make the graves open up. Well, that's impressive if you actually resurrect people. If you're just making Zombieland for a while, you know, I mean, it's just dead things. You're playing with dead things, you know, and that's going to amuse you for only so long. They're just meat puppets, you know. So, and you have to be something larger, I guess, is how I saw it. It was really interesting to be Antonio in the production where Sarah played Prospero, not least because of receiving her forgiveness in the final scene. But the moment with the harpy, I felt like it was really our responsibility as the sufferers to make the harpy powerful. You know, that what was happening to our bodies, and we orchestrated very carefully, and there were sounds and there were, you know, lines that things had to happen on. And I think when that's orchestrated well, it sort of sells that power and that magic in a frightening way, you know, that the power of words to hurt.
Which is similar to the staging of violence, where the victim is in control of it and is setting the tone for all of that.
Yeah, good connection. Yeah.
Jason, thoughts on the supernatural abilities of or powers of Prospero?
I don't think I have much to add. I thought Sarah and James were really eloquent with the way they described it. I do totally agree that it's learned, that there is magic, and he has learned how to access it. It's like the flow, Jim. He just steps into the flow, you know.
Jason's been teaching me about flow.
The flow, it's important.
The flow is really important.
But the thing that I liked about Prospero's magic was he's so good. You know, it's a little bit like Doctor Strange here and Camertage, right? He's so good by this point that it's effortless. Like he's that like just boop, that, you know, that type. It's not like I've got to go, you know, it's very just, yeah, I got it, you know. And I think that's fun.
Here in the home stretch of our Halloween episode, Christopher Johnson, do you want to give any comment on wearing a purple Motown goddess dress?
I think that statement is all the comment it needs. That was awesome. There's a few moments in theater in the Blackfriars where we would get a standing ovation in the middle of the play, and that was one of them, and it was pretty amazing.
Could you describe it for folks that were not privy to it?
Yeah, so in the middle of the Tempest, we have, is it Act 4, Scene 1? I'm not sure.
That's right.
Good numbering, yeah.
We have a demi-mask, which is, we kind of hit all the ticks that you need for a mask that they would do at the time period. But the difference is that we do it or Shakespeare does it in 4 pages, whereas they would take, they could take 4 to 6 hours. So,
I feel like it was Shakespeare dipping his toe into this style of theater that was getting popular, that was his way of saying, look, I could do this, but here's my middle finger. I'm not actually gonna do it.
Yeah, right. And I also think it has to do with like, well, where are we performing? Are we performing somewhere where we can make the show longer? I almost feel like they might have made the mask bigger in certain spaces, and then on certain touring venues, they're like, nope, as small as we can and get out, like just like Winter's Tale. But anyway,
and they cost so much money, those masks that like Johnson wrote and everything. When they did them at court, I mean, they were just like the music videos of their time.
They have receipts that Indigo Jones had, and they're just like, this is just too much. But I mean, I'd love to be there.
I'm entirely convinced that because Shakespeare, he was a favorite of Elizabeth's, but when James was their patron, that he would deliberately write shows to be performed at court, that money had to be spent to create the machinery for it that he could then bring to the Blackfriars and to the Globe, and have it paid for.
Good businessman, that Shakespeare. But yeah, so in this demi mask, you've got the 3 goddesses show up. You've got Juno, Ceres, and Iris, and they all show up, and they do a little song and dance number about harvest and whatnot. And
for the
then
wedding,
they bring up a bunch of spirits, and the spirits come and dance about the harvest, and then Prospero gets upset and ends the play or the mask. But in our production that we did, we decided it was myself, Renee Thornton Jr., and Benjamin Kearns. We were all three. I think I was. I don't remember which one I was.
You were Iris, I think.
Was I Iris? That's right. I was third. So I was Iris, I think. Yeah, that's right. You watched it. You know better than any of us here.
Yeah, it was the best.
Yeah, it was a blast.
It was
but
the
we all
best
came
thing to
out.
be in, just watching it.
Yeah, it was amazing. We all came out in purple dresses and wigs, and did this exquisite, exquisite
Goddess
song and
drag
dance
show.
number, a little drag show that we did, and it was lovely. It was
And-
quite fun. It was, and I feel like it. The thing that I think was really cool about it is it's weird when you're reading the play and you're like, why is this in here? I don't get this. This is weird. Some of the, I mean, I think every piece of music in Shakespeare is there for story. And I think sometimes the story is actually to entertain and to entertain the audience. And it's in those moments where it's like, well, while it's entertaining the audience, what's happening to the characters? And we see that very clearly from Prospero's reaction at the end of the song, right? So so this was a really good example of this song being pure entertainment for the court, the audience, and Prospero working through some shit during it. And then, because I think always at the end of a song, a character is changed at some point for better or for worse. And in this case, it's Prospero.
I always connected to that moment in Midsummer too, through the house give glimmering light by the, that closing blessing on the marriage beds. And here you have this sort of engagement party that dad's trying to, work up for the kids. I always connect them, that kind of entertainment, that it's like a blessing. And I really thought the audience received that show as a blessing, because it was fabulous.
It was great.
It was a showstopper. I mean, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's when you
If only you guys could have committed to it. That's the only thing that was lacking.
That's
so in this home stretch, we touched on that. We've got the fairy world of Midsummer. We've got the ghost in Hamlet. We've got the ghost in Caesar. Is Joan a supernatural character, and those demons? Is there anything that anybody wants to throw out there as a in the greatest hits of Shakespeare supernatural and the spooky? What haven't we talked about that you would like to say, oh yes, there's this, let's not forget about that?
Henry VI, Part 2, Eleanor.
Go a little bit further for people who don't know it.
She summons demons in Henry VI, Part 2. Eleanor summons she summons spirits, and because of this, she gets caught.
She gets in trouble.
Yeah, she gets in trouble, and she gets banished to an island, and her husband later dies. But I mean, it's in the first act of this stellar play. It's awesome.
And Joan in Part 1 dips her toe in that, and then Eleanor takes it a little bit further, and yet neither one of those things are the focal point of those stories. It's just like, boom, here's a bit.
I think the most important supernatural element in any of the shows has to be Hamlet's father's ghost, right? He's the entire inciting event, right? I mean, we haven't talked about it much, but has anybody played that part?
Played it twice. Yeah.
So, Geeks, did you double Claudius too, or were you just the ghost?
In the first quarto, I did. I doubled the king and the ghost in that, but I did not double Claudius in the other one. It was a triple. It was a great triple. It was the ghost, it was the first player, and it was the gravedigger. So it's every one of Hamlet's encounters with somebody talking to him about mortality. So it was great. It was just a real gift to get to do those three. But yeah, I mean, it's so important, like you said. I mean, it's the linchpin of that play, drives everything. And the spirit I have seen may be a devil, and the devil hath power to assume it. That whole tension that Hamlet has is, what is this thing I'm talking to that's telling me to break up the marriage bed of Denmark and taint not my mind and all that stuff. But yeah, it's I have to say my favorite time playing it was playing across from Ben Kearns' Hamlet in Quarto 1, because and we did this great thing where I came out of the trap, but then as I was leaving, a power dragged me back down into the trap. And so it was just this sense of being pulled backwards and reaching for Hamlet and him reaching for me. And, you know, it was, Ben and I still talk about it. Every now and then we still communicate about it because it was just one of those moments on stage. You're like, oh, that was fantastic. You know,
we've got some folks who played the Ghost, and we've got some folks who have played Hamlet. What I want to know is, in your productions, did the Ghost and Hamlet touch? Was the Ghost corporeal? You know, could you touch? So there's a no, there's a yes.
No,
I don't remember. So apparently we did. Yes.
You
Oh,
hugged.
we hugged.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
It's really a cool full circle back to the beginning of our conversation, because the staccato rhythm of the witches or the Weird Sisters cadence compared to the long vowels that are in Hamlet's father's speech, that you can feel the agony of the poison as he is speaking the words. I mean, that's where the creep factor came for me in that part, was having that, just the flow of those words, and it's so rich and painful, and the audience can feel it. And I will share one quick anecdote. This wasn't when I was with Jim, it was when I was with National Shakes, but I got in a four-wheeler accident before I was going to do the show, and I was very fortunate that I didn't horribly injure myself, but I did scrape most of the left side of my face off hitting a tree. So we had to perform the next day, right? So my lovely co-castmates caked my face in makeup over my very open wounds, but so I could go on as Claudius. And then I had this bright idea that, well, when I'm going to play the Ghost, I'm going to take all the makeup off. It made no sense, but it gave a nice creepy factor to what was going on. And then put the makeup back on to go play Claudius again. But it was
sounds painful.
I was about to say, I bet your Ghost was in pain from that purgatory trip.
Absolutely.
Horrible, most horrible.
Most horrible.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for taking part in this. This is awesome. Good to see your faces.
Lovely
Good to hear your stories.
This was amazing. Thank you.
Be well, and see you again soon.
Happy
Thank you for being here. Some folks that have been on board with us. So much to learn from you guys, and I love talking to you every time. Thank you.
Great to see you. Bye.
Great to see you guys. Bye.
Good to see y'all.
I will hop Nora out. She was
That's
kind
Sarah's
of,
mom.
I can't remove that person. That's interesting. Jason, can you? Oh, there we go. Nice work, fellas. You want to close us out?
How should we close this out?
Well, I didn't know if we were going to close the podcasty side of this.
No, that's what I mean. That's just like what should be, you know, can either of you recite spookiness?
I don't know if I can recite spookiness, but what I can say is and again, I think it's a testament to the style that you have brought to the ASC and the AGC, the technical yet high emotional intelligence style of acting that allows us to truly create that really unique theater of the imagination, which feels like a rich tapestry. It never feels like, hey, we don't have enough money to pay for this or that. It feels like we are engaging with this the way it was intended to be engaged with, and we are going to make you go there with us, really, whether you like it or not. You know, it's so cool.
I think that I didn't frame it like that at the beginning. It's good that we're giving this a little plug at the end. I try to stay away from the word intend, because intention of the dead guy versus the tools he had to work with, that he was writing with, that because all of those folks had the experience of Shakespeare staging conditions baked into their understanding of those characters and certainly those productions, that was a given up front, that how do we create spectacle and spooky and supernatural at 2:00 in the afternoon? I mean, it got said a little bit. How do we, and I love that first answer. It's inside the text. There is spooky and creepy inside the text. And I'm delighted to hear that come back. And yet there is so many things for us to tap into when we build the 1614 globe. The 1614 globe was also, the Blackfriars was already open when the first globe burned down and they rebuilt it. So the fact that they were doing even more tricks indoors was part of the 1614 experience. So granted, I think you could do some things indoors that you couldn't do outdoors, or there needed to be, some adjustment. We get to play with that. But the idea that it's not just because we don't have money. There is something about theater of the imagination that can make things even creepier and spookier, especially if we use some of the tools that they had to do the fire things, to do blood, to do, four-wheeler accident.
So 2 quick comments along that line. One is I hope we can bring some of what we learned tonight into play so that, our season will probably be closing up in the globe around this time of year every year. And I think being able to do a special night or two, around Halloween at the globe that focuses on these characters and how they can be played would be a lot of fun to do. And secondly, Jim Warren and the 1614 Experience is one hell of a band name. And I think we should get working on that too.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funty.
It's not quite as good as the Alan Parsons Project, but it's up there.
Every year at the Globe, every year at the AGC, we're going to duplicate what I ended up finding at the Blackfriars with 12-month programming, is that every year we'll have seasons inside of that year. And though the globe will wind up, what we do indoors will probably be we've got the opening of the globe, new plays, but we've also got calendar year opening and closing. So trying to decide, does our official year start in January?
Right.
What I know from experience is that if you don't consider January the start of your year, then the writing about it's just like the NFL and the NBA. It's the 2026-27 season. It's, you can't do it year by year. You have to do 2 years.
Yeah, they won the 2024 Super Bowl in 2025.
Right, exactly. And we want that to be the Washington team, but it just might not be.
Who knows? I mean, they got such a strong quarterback right now.
Jason
Mariota.
Jason,
have a quarterback?
yes, he was on the sidelines cheering on during the one good play we had. Jason, any final supernatural spooky thoughts?
No. Well, maybe. So I was having kind of a big think as this kept getting brought up and repeated. Oh, you can tell how long I've been up and how boring you are, Jim.
Our listener just also fell asleep, Jason. Thank you.
I was having this idea that it's the other people that give the supernatural the power. It's the other people that give the king the power. It's the victim that gives the aggressor the power. And then that got me I was like, oh, there's a dissertation in here about how that is so true in theater and in Shakespeare, but also in life. It's us that makes something scary, not the thing. It's us that makes we give everything that has power over us, we give it to them.
Yeah.
Even in a good way, even in a positive way. So much of religion is based on that. We give the deity the deityness. One of
Yes.
The Atenin?
I give you, Jason,
nonsense.
I give you the power over me that you have.
Yeah. And so I just that just kept it kept coming up, and then it just kept pushing me deeper and deeper into a big thing. Not that I have any desire to write a dissertation, but I think that somebody out there
Jason's doctorate's coming up now, I think.
you could
Well, you might write a tweet about it, Jason.
yeah, man. You could call me Dr. J, like that. That's original, right?
I met him. He's pretty cool. What's pretty cool? Still alive? Alive or dead? Go. We'll figure it out next episode. Maybe
I
he's
think he's still alive.
Creepy. Dr. J.
The ghost of Dr. J, yes.
Who is still alive.
Dr. J is still alive. His afro is not.
Ah, well.
And apparently Chris Johnston wore it in Tempest. Is that what I heard today?
I heard. That's what I took away.
No, Chris Johnston, the ones that I'm remembering, Renee and Ben had beehives, and Chris Johnston had a pink bob.
Hot.
Yeah, and I believe that you can find that photo on one of our social media posts about this episode.
Yes.
And amazingly, they had their shirts on.
Please do stay in touch with us on our social media and share and get other folks to come. We want to make sure that we're serving up good content to a bunch of folks, and we appreciate our audience. Thank y'all.
Peace out.
Peace out.